Senate Parliament set to pass legislation to strengthen its contempt of Parliament powers, including detailed sanctions, as Speaker launched fresh criticism at police for allegedly obstructing the work of Medina MP, due back in court tomorrow for 2 criminal offences.
In this particular instance of the member of Parliament from Medina, I can put my neck for it. That you have no such power. That is obstruction. And we as Parliament have to
Radio, Joy 99.7.
And the sanctions involved in contempt of Parliament.
This is Top Story with Evans Mensah. Super Hits Radio, Joy 99.7.
And Top Story is always brought to you by Vodafone. Together we can. Well, in the next 24 hours, we expect that the Medina MP, Francis Xavier Sosu, will be before court. The last time the case was called, he was not in the country. The Speaker had to write to the court to say he cannot be available because he wasn't present in the jurisdiction. He is wanted by the police for allegedly destruction of public property and blockade of a public highway. Well, in the wake of what we anticipate in the next 24 hours, the Speaker of Parliament has renewed his criticism of the police tonight, of its handling of this matter. Well, the Speaker today at a breakfast meeting in Kumasi has been scathing of the police's attempt to arrest the Member of Parliament, insisting that the police have no such powers to do so and that they've been attempting to obstruct the work of the Medina MP. In fact, on the back of his criticism of the police today, he is laying out a detailed plan next year to pass new legislation that will give meaning to the constitutional provision on contempt of Parliament, which will spell out detailed sanctions for those, like the police, believe, who are in contempt of Parliament. He's been speaking today in Kumasi at a breakfast meeting. Listen to his criticism of the police around this issue regarding the Medina MP.
A number of these things have come to my desk. We have processed them well. And you are all aware a number of MPs are before courts being prosecuted. And so there is nobody saying that the Member of Parliament is above the law or Parliament is above the law. No. But in this particular instance of the Member of Parliament from Medina, I can put my neck for it. That you have no such power. After he's gone through all the processes with you, and you gave the date, and you send your men to go down with them in the procession, then he's addressing them at the end of the day. Then you send a different contingent to go to arrest him whilst he's talking to his constituents. That is obstruction. And Article 122 is very clear on that. That it constitutes contempt. How can that be said to be the Speaker preventing the Member of Parliament from being arrested? We cannot tolerate that.
He believed this is in the area of contempt of Parliament, and already, he says, consultations have begun to pass fresh legislation on this matter to strengthen Parliament's contempt of Parliament powers.
But to reduce the tension and to let us continue to work together in consultation with leadership, we'll be having a meeting with the other stakeholders to discuss this matter. And we'll be guided by the judicial opinion. And we as Parliament will have to legislate on the nature, the scope, and the sanctions involved when you're talking about contempt of Parliament. And so these things will be looked at in detail, not just the skeletal provisions in the Constitution. And I hope within next year, we should be able, with the support of our civil society partners, work out these issues and come out with clear legislation to guide all of us in our conduct of these matters.
He was also unhappy, what he believes to be the conspiracy around the democratic dispensation that we have that has left Parliament in a weak position, unable to exercise its oversight responsibility as enshrined in the Constitution.
How will Parliament be able to improve governance when the governance in Parliament itself is in intensive care? And so it's very, very important. This function, oversight function, is a traditional role that is the lawmaking. Now we share it a bit with the executive because of the assent. But the final one is given to us. But when we say, no, we disagree with you, this is how we want it, His Excellency has no choice. And within 7 days to assent to the bill, to make it law. So that one final is given to us. The other areas, you appoint a minister who is a member of Parliament with you, or he was just somewhere. After you have processed the minister to be appointed, he is seen as your boss. Even though you were the one that the people killed, struggled, campaigned for months, and voted to go and represent the whole constituency. Just one person that surfaced from somewhere without going through that process is just appointed, even DCs, and they say they are higher than a member of Parliament. So why do we struggle to campaign, to form parties, to go and vote, and to elect somebody that you know you can just appoint another to supersede? There's a lot of learning to do. So you will see that parliamentary oversight therefore seeks to ensure transparency and openness of executive activities, to hold the executive branch accountable, to provide them the financial accountability. And that is an area we are very weak after we pass the laws. In fact, the budget, the evolving best practice usually is now between 2 months, 3 months for Parliament to be able to scrutinize the budget properly and make sure that it is aligned with the national priorities. I look at the geopolitics, how much of the capital budget is going to this part of this region and that kind of thing, how much is going to women, children, the aged, how much, all those things. Is the duty of Parliament to go into these things before approval. Where is the manpower? Where is the time?
Well, he's been disclosing how Parliament has been flexing its muscles around the timing for the budget, and that he had to stand his ground to dictate when the budget is read and not succumb to the dictates of the executive. We'll get into that shortly. But I want to bring in right now a few individuals on the back of the concerns we've had expressed by the Speaker of Parliament. In fact, joining me right now is lawyer for Francis Xavier Susu, Victor Kojoga Daudu. Joining me also right now is a former member of Parliament. He's a former ranking on the Constitutional, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs Committee in Parliament, Mr. Inusa Fuseni. Mr. Fuseni, thank you for time here on Top Story.
Thank you, Evans. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for joining us. Stay with me. I want to bring in Victor Kojoga Daudu. He's a lawyer for Francis Xavier Susu. So we have a speaker there. I'm absolutely unhappy with the conduct of the police, renewing his this fight that we've seen over the last few weeks between Parliament and the police, calling them obstructing the work of your client, and also police has no powers to effect the arrest they had intended. The case was called last week, I believe. Francis Xavier Susu was not in court. The Parliament had written, in fact, the Speaker had caused a letter to be written to the court to say he wasn't in town. He was out of jurisdiction on official parliamentary duty. Is he back, and will he be in court tomorrow? Hello, Mr. Daudu. Hello, sir. Okay, we don't seem to have him. Let's get him back on this. Let's fix that. But clearly, tomorrow is the date when this will have to happen. Last week, they had to go into chambers to discuss this with the lawyers, the state lawyers who had gone there on the powers of the police, obviously determined on the back of the court summons that had been issued in pursuant to the police attempt to arrest him. There was a fight over serving him. As far as that process was concerned. His spokesperson had told us that he had not been served. The police, just before I came on air, confirmed they had indeed served him. And we know what has happened last week when they went back to court. And the speaker had informed the court that he was not in the jurisdiction. But I want to bring in, before we get that clarity, I want to bring in the former ranking on the Constitutional Legal Affairs Committee on what we just heard the speaker articulate there. Mr. Fuseni, thank you again. We just had a speaker there. He was emphatic on 2 points. One, that the police have no powers to effect the arrest the way they had attempted to do. And second, that what they had attempted to do was obstructing the work of a sitting MP. What's your take on that?
Well, thank you so very much, Evans. It has been a matter of great concern to me and many people in this country on the way the relationship between the Parliament of Ghana and the police appears to be under great strain by reason of the development surrounding the invitation to Honorable Soso to assist the police in the investigations. I had thought earlier that the matter was just procedural, and the partial immunity granted to a member of parliament required that the police inform the Speaker of Parliament of their request, and it was almost given that the Speaker will bring that request to the attention of the Member of Parliament, and the Member of Parliament will honor the invitation. If the Member of Parliament has reasons to believe that he cannot honor the invitation, he will have his lawyers write to the police and inform them of the reasons why he cannot honor the invitation. But be it as it may, it appears that Parliament as an institution has taken the fight to the police, and the police have resorted to the courts. I think that the Council of State and civil society organizations must intervene in this matter and ensure that the decorum, respect, and integrity of the various institutions is not compromised by this tussle between the police and Parliament. The police powers of arrest are only in law, and they cannot be determined by any individual. The limits of the exercise of that power cannot be determined by any individual, not even the Speaker. Now, if the police, in the excess of their police powers, arrest a person, and that person feels strongly that the arrest was unlawful, the recourse is to the courts. And so I believe that the rule of law requires that there should be certainty in application of law, and that the law itself must be such that it can easily be accessible for people to know their rights. And in this particular matter, the police have taken the right course by going to the courts for a court sermon to invite Soso to the courts for him to make himself available to the police to assist him.
Stay with me, because there's more to unpick from what you've just explained. But let me get a quick update from Soso's lawyer, who is joining us, Victor Kojogai Daudu. Mr. Daudu, thank you for your time here on Top Story.
Yeah, Evans, good evening, and thank you for the opportunity.
Great to have you. Tomorrow, your client is expected back before the court. Is he in town, and will he appear?
God willing, if he gets to town, definitely we will go to court tomorrow, and if he's there, we will be there. And why not? If a court summons you that you should come and you are properly served, we will be there.
You use the word "if." Is that to suggest that you're not sure he is in town?
Not the best knowledge I have as at now.
In other words, you can't be certain if he will be before the court tomorrow in person.
No, I'm not saying that. Yes, the court has adjourned the matter to tomorrow. They said they have an information that you'll be in town by tomorrow. So if he's in town by tomorrow, we will definitely appear before the court.
I ask because I mean, as his lawyer, I mean, by now you should know if he's going to appear before tomorrow. No.
All I know is that he's still on parliamentary duty. He's out of the country on parliamentary duty. I spoke to him as at yesterday. So I'm here to speak to him. I just closed from court not too long. So I'm here to get back to him to know the flight of which he's coming with.
I mean, so last week when this was called, it took the intervention of the speaker in their letter to say why he can appear. You've just explained that if he's in town, he will certainly appear before the court. The police's desire is to arrest him. You see that happening?
No, so far as the matter is before the court for a criminal summons that has been issued, and if he's served, why not you will be in court? I don't think that the police can just arrest you for anything. There should be a reasonable and probable ground why you should be arrested, or you are committing any crime in their presence. So there are two ways of doing it, instituting criminal action in this country. It is either through the police or through the magistrate. That when a complaint is made to the magistrate will issue a warrant or a criminal summons for the proceedings to start.
So you don't expect that, because the police say they have reasonable cause to effect that arrest. They've explained two bases for this: destruction of public property and blocking of unlawful blockade of a public highway.
Evans, it's the same police that grants permission was sought from them. Not permission was sought, they were notified of a demonstration. So if you were with them, how could you obstruct traffic? How can you destroy public property? And nobody was told after some weeks. And even if property were destroyed, he is not the one who destroyed the property. And I'm sure there are videos all over where people were trying to do their untoward, where he said that no, they should stop. As a good citizen, he went to them that this is not what we bargained for. Nobody should do anything untoward. So it is the court that is the arbiter, and if that is the ground and is reasonable and probable cause, so be it. I don't think that my client, Sosu, is a coward. Sosu is a lawyer. He understands the rudiments of the law, and he will abide by anything that he knows that it is right. And where he thinks that it is not right, he would resist it with all his might and all his intellect and expertise. So let's wait and we would get into the matter when he's back.
Okay, I mean, so I believe that you know for certain later tonight, because the court will have to be informed of whether he's actually coming or not.
If he comes, why not? We'll be in court. Whether he's in or not, we'll be in court. As far as the court says, we should be in court tomorrow. Whether he's in or not, we will be in court.
Representing him. Very quickly, the Speaker of Parliament has said tonight that the police had no powers to try and affect the arrest the way they did. Plus, they were obstructing his work. You ascribe to that view?
I agree with that view. You see, when you want to arrest somebody, there must be a reasonable and probable cause. You just don't go to arrest the person and now start fishing for evidence. Our law is clear on that. Now, what happens? He was on his duty. He said he was going to Parliament. So if there's any invitation, he will go to Parliament and he will come. And you accost him, you want to arrest him. The law says that our body or anything is inviolable. You cannot violate it. That is what the law says. But we should be told the reasons for your arrest.
But he didn't, from what I understand, he didn't allow that to happen. He sat in the sky and was driving off. The police would definitely have read him his Miranda rights if that had not happened.
Can you come again, please?
The police would have read him his Miranda rights if that had not happened, as in he had not driven off when they attempted to arrest him.
Because, no, the good thing is that he saw that what was going to happen because the constituents wanted to attack the police. And if he had been arrested, there would have been chaos. There would have been deaths. So for me, I think that it was a good thing that he quickly moved into his car and left. That brought the tension down. But if he had been arrested by the police, it would have been a bad story for us. So I think that when we are doing things, we look at it and the consequences because we are serving the people and we must think of the people at first. And I think that it was a good thing that he was able to leave the scene and brought some calm to the place.
Victor, thank you very much. Victor is lawyer for Francis Xavier Sosu, Medina MP. He says, well, the last time he checked with his client, not back in the country yet, but if he's back, he will appear before the court. I want to bring back Mr. Nusaf Hussaini, a former ranking on the Constitutional Legal Affairs Committee, with his thoughts on this unfolding drama on the back of what we've just heard from the Speaker today, still pursuing his hard stance on this matter. Mr. Hussaini, let me ask you a direct question from what we heard from the Speaker today. He was clear that the police had no powers to effect the arrest, and secondly, that they were obstructing the work of your former colleague. Is the Speaker right?
Well, the Speaker has made a pronouncement. The Speaker cannot be a judge in his own cause. I mean, that's why in law we have unlawful arrest. And so if the police are accessing the power of arrest, the powers of arrest unlawfully, there's a remedy in court. And so is quite aware of the remedy available to him if the exercise of the police powers of arrest has been done unlawfully. I mean, it's always better in the interest of justice and the rule of law to resort to the established institutions that we all agree have the powers to determine the limits of one's rights to settle such matters. So I think that, yes, that is the Speaker's opinion, but in my view, the best forum to determine whether the police were obstructing the Member of Parliament in the performance of his duties, or whether the police were seeking to exercise their powers of arrest unlawfully, is the law courts and not the Speaker, with the greatest respect.
The Speaker made a major announcement today that next year they're going to pass legislation that will flesh out the contempt of court provisions in the contempt of Parliament provisions in the Constitution to spell out the sanctions. He believes, well, the police's actions and others are in clear contempt of Parliament, but there's no clear legislation that spells out sanctions, etc. What do you make of that approach?
Well, so in lawmaking, and particularly in constitutional law development, some provisions are left in such a vague manner for the jurisprudence around those provisions to be developed by the law courts. Because, you see, when you set out the limits of that power, you are invariably limiting the scope of the contempt. So when Parliament takes a decision to pass a law to the contempt, they will thereby be limiting the contempt provisions. They will not be expanding it. They will put in, they will be defining the limits of the contempt and the Parliament, the punishment that will be imposed on the person. And so again, you'll be limiting your exercise, your power to punish. And so that is why in constitutional law development, and particularly the jurisprudence of Parliament, certain provisions are left that way, so that the courts, if we resort to the court, and I thought the Speaker should be encouraging all of us to be going to court. You see, because if you want to develop the culture, the parliamentary democratic culture, we should be quick at going to court to test the limits of the Constitution. And you know what happened in Britain when the the Prime Minister decided that he could crash out of the EU with that more. Members of Parliament thought that he didn't have that power when he prorogued the Parliament. So they went to court, both in England and in Scotland. And the courts consolidated the cases and made a pronouncement and declared the prorogue illegal, unlawful, unconstitutional. You see, that then set the limits of the exercise of the power of the Prime Minister to prorogue Parliament. And that was done by the use of the courts. That's how you develop parliamentary democracy. Until then, the Speaker, the Prime Minister had that power. But the circumstances in which the Prime Minister exercised that power were clearly understood by everybody, except when the Prime Minister wanted to crash out of the EU.
So I wonder then, on the back of what you've just said, is it a smart move then to do what the Speaker has said today, pass this legislation on the contempt of Parliament?
Well, I don't think it's a smart move. I think that you leave it that way and then you encourage members of Parliament to test the limit of the contempt of Parliament in court. And because law is a living organism, the courts will always stretch the limits, if they are minded to do so, of the contempt provisions of Parliament. And then you will not be seen to be limiting your own powers by legislation.
I'm grateful, Inusuf Hussaini. Inusuf Hussaini is a former ranking on the Constitutional Legal Affairs and Parliamentary Affairs Committee in Parliament. Grateful for your thoughts on that. What's your own position on this, now that we are beginning to learn a bit more about what Parliament wants to do in strengthening its own contempt of Parliament law, which is enshrined in the Constitution? You just heard Inusuf Hussaini say he doesn't think that is a smart move. What's your thinking? There's some who believe it might even strengthen the belief of parliamentary tyranny. Share with me your thoughts. 055-1111-997. In fact, the Speaker was also clear today when he was speaking that he will not allow a few what he called misguided people to tarnish the illustrious image of this country's democracy.
Let me end by saying that I am always guided by professional advice and my understanding of the law of the country. It's not only my understanding, my experience. I've gone through it not only in Ghana, in the World Parliament. We cannot afford to allow a few misguided people to tarnish this illustrious image of our country.
Jack, your money come on. That is the sweet sound of my savings when I try.